Sweet. Awesome. Hey, Dad. Thanks for letting me interview you for this project. Cool. Um, would you tell me stories from or tell me about your wedding, like the night before, day of. Walk me through it, if you will.
Okay, day of. So your mom and I had a pretty big wedding, um, and I had cousins and siblings that were in the wedding. Um, your mom had a lot of friends and whatnot. So um, we showed up, and one of the things that we had done that was kind of unique was we had written our own vows, and they were kind of taken from a retreat that we had done. And that was kind of the first big uh, thing that kind of resonated with me because you're a little nervous anyway. But the priest who was marrying us, he asked us to go ahead and practice our vows, and it was at that point that I realized that I hadn't really memorized the vows that I was supposed to be saying the next day. So we, I realized, okay, that's something I've got to work on that night, and so we all got together afterwards, after the rehearsal dinner, and we were hanging out. And your mom left, and obviously she wanted to make sure she got lots of sleep before the big day. And I thought that was probably pretty wise as well. So I was actually back in a outside my room, and I was practicing my vows. And then all of a sudden, here come some family members, and they said, "Hey, what's going on? I haven't had a chance to have a drink with you tonight." So they pulled me into this room, and needless to say, about 4 hours later, it was, okay, I really have to get some sleep. And your mom was pretty explicit with me that I did not need to be late for the wedding because we were actually doing our pictures beforehand. So the next morning, there's a ringing sound, and I thought it was my alarm, and actually it was the phone. And it was your mom calling, saying, "Hey," she was all excited, big day, getting ready to head over to the church. And she said, "I can't wait to see you." And I had literally just rolling out of bed. And that's when I said, "Okay, I can't wait either." And I said, "By the way, if I'm running just a little bit late, don't be afraid to just go ahead and get started without me." And that's when I could tell the tone in her voice is starting to get a little different. So anyway, I boom, hurry up. I'm like rushing to get something to get showered up, all that kind of stuff. And I come out, and my dad, he was the best man at my wedding. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, what's going to happen?" And he said, "I've already got Eric, who's my brother-in-law. He's going to take care of her." I didn't have any of my stuff packed, to be heading out for the honeymoon and stuff. He took care of all that. So Eric is racing down, and I show up, and we pull up, and there's a traffic light across from the street, and I was like, I can't wait. And so I jump out. I've got my bow tie. I've got all my cufflinks and everything in my hand. I'm running across the street. People are honking the horn. I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" Getting married. So I go in, and your mom is just shaking her head, but I think she was just so excited that I was actually there. So then it was kind of funny because then we progressed to, it's getting really close to the actual wedding. And I'm in this kind of like this room off to the side. So you've got the altar up at the front. And there's this room off to the side, which is usually where the priests and the altar boys and stuff get dressed and everything. And I guess it was nerves or whatever, but all of a sudden I was like, "Oh, I gotta have one last time. I have to use the facilities." So I go downstairs, and there was a toilet down there. And when I come back up, my dad is not there. And I was like, and I heard music going, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, they have started this wedding without me." And just then, Dad walks in, and he said I was white as a ghost, and he goes, "What's wrong?" And I forgot that they were doing the whole, lighting the candles. So I was like, "Whew, okay." So we go outside and we're standing there, and it's me and my dad and the priest that's marrying us, and then there's the two your mom's two cousins who are the altar servers. And all of a sudden, Papa looks over and he looks at this tunnel and he goes, "Hey Todd," he goes, "There's your last chance." I go, "Last chance for what?" He goes, "If you say you're ready to bail, I'll take you right out through this door." And the priest turns around, he's looking like this, and we're all laughing and stuff, and obviously, everything went off without a hitch, and so it was a good time. The wedding reception, we had a lot of fun, and that was a whole nother ball of wax. It was another funny story with your mom, because we got there, and when we talked to the DJ, she said, this music, that music, whatever you want to do, but I really don't want to hear any kind of hip hop. And he said, okay, I got it, no problem. So he starts playing music, and everybody's having a good time. We go through the first dance, we go through the wedding party, all this kind of stuff, and probably about 45 minutes, maybe an hour into it, all of a sudden I hear this, "I like big butts and I cannot lie." And your mom starts shaking her head, and she goes, "Oh, I thought I said no hip hop." And I said, "Don't worry about it. Everybody's having a good time." Right as she's saying that, one of her bridesmaids grabs her hand and walks up and basically helps her up on this table. So instead of getting, your mom hates being in the spotlight, but she just kind of started going with it, and she's dancing and everything. Well, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, one of the my mom and dad's friends walks over, and he waves to her, and he gives her some money. And so she didn't know what to do with it, so she just kind of puts it in her dress. Well, somebody saw him do that, and then all of a sudden, all these guys are coming over, and they're like, and I'm not talking singles, I'm talking big bills, and it's just like boom, boom, and she's putting it in. And I actually had one of my buddies who was in the wedding, he actually gave her his wallet, and she stuck it in, and of course he needed it back. But so the end of the night, everybody's gone. They're all going back to the hotel. We're going to a different hotel because we're flying out the next day to San Francisco. And so instead of having a fancy limo or anything that's taking us, it was actually Nana who was taking us over to the hotel. And so your mom goes, "Man, I'm really hungry. That dinner is just not, it's gone." And I said, "Well, do you want to stop somewhere?" And she goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, where do you want to stop?" And she said, "Well, let's just go to Wendy's." So, classy us, we're pulling in the Wendy's, sitting in the back seat in our tux and wedding dress and everything. And, we're hollering out our order and stuff, and the guy says it's whatever, 1062 or whatever, and your mom says, "I got this." And so then she reaches into her dress and pulls out, boom, a 20 spot. That was it. The rest is history.
Oh my. I feel like I've also heard a lot of good stories from the night before Tara's wedding.
Oh, well, yeah. So, one thing you have to keep in mind is that I've known your Aunt Tara since she was about 13 or 14. Because when I met your mom rather, she was, I think in middle school or just starting high school. So, it's from that perspective, it's kind of neat to just kind of see them grow up over the years. And so the night of her wedding, or the night before her wedding, it was the same thing. We went to the rehearsal and then go to this dinner, and it was funny because the dinner was a little surreal. It was in somebody that they knew that they'd grown up, gone to school with or whatnot. Her family owned a Chinese restaurant, and we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, the dad, who was also the owner, the dad of their classmate, he's going around with this giant bong. He's like, boom, and he'd go, "Pfeiffer!" So once he did that once or twice, every time he hit the bong, everybody's yelling out "Pfeiffer" and getting all excited. So we go back to Nana's house, and your mom's side of the family, they're big into snacking, so they got over there and they had the munchies. They were just ready to go, and so they call it a snack attack. So they're bringing out chips and ho-hos and Twinkies and all kinds of stuff. And then it didn't take long before here comes the easy cheese. And so they open it up, and they're not just, putting on a cracker or on a chip or something. I mean, they're going full on, boom, right into the mouth. And what's funny is that your Uncle Drew, he had brought a date who, it was her first time meeting the family. And it was a big thing because Uncle Drew didn't really have a lot of, really didn't date anybody from the time I knew him. So they're all excited and they're, like I said, doing the easy cheese, boom, boom. And then it gets to her. I think her name is Katie. And they said, Katie, you want some easy cheese? And she said, I don't eat processed cheese. And the look on your mom and Aunt Tara's face, it was like, whoa, what is wrong with you? And of course, then they went, oh, there's more for us. But yeah, needless to say, she didn't come around after that anymore. I think your Uncle Drew dropped her pretty quick. But so then, you think, okay, well, we have a little snack attack, and then that's the end of the night. Well, then you and Tara decided, hey, let's go down the basement and have one last drink or whatever, and we're all kind of sitting around, and next thing you know, a big, leg wrestling tournament breaks out, and I mean, it was a lot of fun, but her mom was, Nana, she was not too thrilled with what was going on the next day. But in true form, your Aunt Tara, she bounced back, and it was like you would have never known that she was up till all hours of the night.
Oh, that's funny. Tell me about when the first time Mom met Skip and like your whole family.
So, your mom and I met long distance. So, and it was funny because she had over time, my mom had heard me talk about Trisha, but she'd never met her. And this was my last quarter in school, and so I had a lot of flexibility in my schedule. And my mom said, "Hey, I'm gonna go up for your Uncle Skip's surprise 40th birthday party." And I said, "Oh, well, who else going?" And she said, "Well, I'm just gonna ride up with your Aunt Angel." And I said, "Well, would you mind if I joined you?" And she said, "No, that's not a problem at all." So I started thinking about it, and I went, hey, on our way up, do you mind if we just pull off real quick in Lexington, since it's on the way, and pick up Trisha? And my mom said, okay, well, that's fine, no problem. So we swung by, picked her up, and we drove up. And because it was a surprise party for him, we were staying with one of my aunts and kind of supposed to be staying, kind of on the down low. But a lot of family who knew that they were all coming in town, they all came over to my Aunt Mary Ann's. So, your mom's meeting, all of a sudden she's meeting all these aunts. She's, obviously met my mom. She's meeting my cousins, all this kind of stuff. And as we're going around talking about the surprise party the next night, they started saying what they were going to do. And that was, it's kind of like this old show with Groucho Marx where This Is Your Life. So what they were going to have him do was have him blindfolded out on stage because he was having a band play and stuff. They were having a band play. And then they were going to one by one come out and tell a story. And then he would say, oh, it's Cindy or Susie or Angel or whatever. So as he's telling the story, I said, it would be awesome. It would be awesome if we brought Trisha out and introduced him as his illegitimate daughter. And your mom looked at me like, what? But all of a sudden he goes, oh my gosh, that would be hilarious. That would be awesome. You have to do it. You have to do it. Now again, your mom hates being in the spotlight, right? And so she was shaking her head and not happy with me, but she goes, all right, you're just going to have to give me plenty of liquid courage before I got there. So the next night, sure enough, we go out, we go to the party, we're hanging out, and they got to the point where the band stopped and they said, hey, we've got a few guests that we want to introduce you. And so he had the blindfold on and they came out and they each told their story. Well, then your mom comes, they said, we got one more, and she comes walking across the stage. And you have to understand, the only people who knew that this was going on were those of us that were at the party. So his wife, his daughters, nobody knew that any of this was going to happen. So she gets out there and she says, I can't tell you how excited and nervous I am to be here at this party, because finally, after 18 years, I can say, happy birthday, Dad. And that's when he rips his blindfold off to look at this blonde who he's never seen in his life. And there was kind of a little bit of laughter, cackle, and then a lot of hush, because nobody really knew how to react. And all of a sudden, he looked out there at the crowd, and he happened to make eye contact with me, and he pointed at me, and I kind of nodded my head, and so then he knew that, it was all just a big joke. But to this day, whenever we get together for family get-togethers, if it's a wedding or whatever it may be, he always has a special place for your mom. He'll always come up and go, oh, how's my daughter, and throw his arm around her. So it was quite the way to get introduced to the broader family.
Oh my gosh, that's good. Okay, what about some stories about like you and Hank when you were younger? Remember, there's some good ones.
Well, so as you know, Mr. Hank, I've known him since middle school, and we ended up going to different high schools, and he ended up back at Georgia Tech. And probably the one that's most memorable is when we were in middle school, and we were in this program. Now they would call it, TAG, like Talented and Gifted, but back then they had a different name. But anyway, so we had an opportunity each year to go on a field trip that was specific to this group. And in 7th grade, we went to the World's Fair. So the World's Fair was a big deal. It only happened once a year, and it rotated around the world into typically a big city, because it started off in big cities. Well, in I think it was 1983. The World's Fair was in Knoxville, Tennessee, which is, as you know, not the world's biggest city, but it was big to do. And so, because it was so close, it was like, okay, well, let's take a group of kids up there. So we all go up, and they're pulling different teachers to be chaperones for this thing. So you didn't really have parents; you just had teachers, and the teacher-to-student ratio wasn't great. And it just so happened that for our group, one of the chaperones, she was a poor woman. She was a kindergarten teacher. And so we get off the bus at the World's Fair on the first day, and they said, okay, we're going to give you some free time, and we'll let you go running around until 5 o'clock. And then you have to be at the bus at 5 o'clock. Which, now as a parent, I look back and I go, man, that's a pretty long leash for a bunch of kids. So we go running around, and we're grabbing something to eat here and do this there and stuff, and then of course we ended up in the arcade, because that's what back then. How can you pass up the arcade? So we're all playing games and stuff, and I can't remember who it was, but they said, okay, well, what time is it? And we looked at the clock, and it was 5 o'clock, and we were like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And we come running out of the arcade, and we're kind of standing there, and that's when Hank uttered those infamous words, which are, follow me, I've been here before. Now, you would think with kids that are supposedly talented and gifted that some of us, at least one of us, would have challenged him or said, are you sure about this? But we didn't even question him. So he takes off running, and we're all running with him. Moving around, zigzagging, dodging through people, up, down, and we're probably running for a solid 10 minutes. And we finally stop, and Hank stops, and we go, all right, where do we go next? And that's when he turned around, and he goes, guys, I have something to tell you. And we said, what is it? And he goes, actually, I've never been here before, and I have no idea where we are. Oh my gosh. So we finally found somebody and asked them and said, hey, here's what we're trying to get to. They gave us directions, and it was probably another good 10 minutes before we could get to where we are. So we show up about 20 minutes behind when we were supposed to. This poor woman, the kindergarten teacher, tears streaming down her face, because she is responsible for us. And everybody else, all the rest of our classmates, are all sitting on the bus, with their faces pressed against the windows, watching us as our teacher just railed into us. She wasn't happy because she really didn't have a way to punish us, because she said, if it was up to me, I wouldn't let you go the next day. But if we can't go, then that means that the teacher, and all the chaperone, or at least one of the chaperones, couldn't go. So we did go, but we were on a pretty short leash. But needless to say, that was, for old Hank, that was definitely not one of his funner moments.
Sorry, I just lost my train. Do you have any other stories? I feel like you've told some about like sledding or just things that you and your siblings would do when you guys were younger. For you and Hank.
Yeah, I mean, we used to, we certainly would go sledding. I'm not sure if there's really a good story. Maybe some of them I just can't remember. I mean, definitely a lot of memories.
There was one about, where I feel like you had like a tin sign or something. It was one of when we were little and you used to point at the little scars and marks and stuff, and you'd have all these stories about how you got them. Maybe not all of them are real.
Well, now, with sledding, and granted, it doesn't snow down here in Georgia very often, but I remember when we were younger, there was a really good snow. And not only did it snow, but it also, it had gotten some freezing rain on top of it. So I kind of put like a level of ice over the top. And so it made it go from pretty good sledding conditions to unbelievable. And, we're all out there with, granted, we didn't really have sleds, so I think we had some neighbors who had a sled or two that were all kind of taking turns and stuff. Well, Pop, he's a salesman by trade, and so he had this sign, and he said, you know what, we can use this. Well, the thing is that the sign was made out of fiberglass. So it, on top of the ice, was like going losing. I mean, it was just, and you know how their neighborhood, I mean, where their house sits, it's kind of at the top of a really big hill. So we started, when he pulled this out, we're like, okay, yeah, well, let's try it. Well, we weren't as, we were pretty light. So what happened was, Pop said, here, I will be on the bottom, and then you guys, one of you guys can ride on top. So I said, being the oldest, I was like, yeah, I guess I'm first up. So I get on top of this thing. And here we go. Well, you start going, and one thing you have to remember is that the sign, you're not really on a sled where you can kind of turn it much. So you're kind of just at the will of where the sign's going to go. So we start taking off, and this thing, it doesn't take long before it starts picking up some steam. And the neighbors on the other side of our house, it was kind of a weird weird yard where it kind of went, and then it had a little drop off to the neighbor's driveway. So we come flying down like this. We're kind of have crossed the street into the neighbor's yard, and as we're going, we hit that little ledge and go airborne. And we hit the ground, and now we're cooking. And we are flying down this thing. Well, the thing is that when you get to the bottom of the hill, which is where the street is, there's no, it's just a curb. So it wasn't like you're going to keep going. So we come flying down, and that's when Pop realizes, okay, this is going to get ugly fast. And so he did his best to kind of pull up like this, and so we hit the curb, and the sled stopped. I didn't. I just kept, down the hill. And of course, as a kid, you pop up and you're like, that was awesome. I can't wait to do it again. And I think that's when Pop said, "Okay, well, now you're going to be the you're going to be the one on the bottom. You can take your brothers and sisters down." I think he'd had enough. But yeah, that was a good day. That was definitely a fun day of sledding.
um, what about what was one you were telling the other day about the turkey trot?
Well, with it being Thanksgiving, of course, it was. It always brings to mind, and it was when you were in grade school. I think it was when you were in first grade, and your elementary school had this thing called a turkey trot, and with you being the oldest, it was kind of okay, and you hadn't done it the year before, so we were all excited, and you were all excited. You're like, yeah, everybody in the school does it, and everything, and uh, you're not unathletic, but you're not always like superstar athlete, and so we got there, and what they did was they lined everybody up by grade. So the kindergartners got to go first, and basically what it was is all the students were doing 2 laps. And I don't know that the kindergartners, I think they only had to do 1 lap. So the first graders were like the first group that were going to do 2 laps around. So they have a guy on the megaphone, and he says, "Okay, everybody, here we go. Let's get started. Ready, go." And so as soon as he hits go, boom, you just see this mad dash of kids, and parents and students are all cheering, and you've got usually the group that's just all excited and just takes off running. And so as the first lap comes around, there's the first wave of kids. I mean, they're just the ones that are just hauling it the whole way, and then you kind of have different groups. You kind of have maybe a second wave, and then a third wave, and then pretty much towards the back of the pack, here you come, and you're jogging along, and we're waving, and you're waving back and stuff, and then you kind of move on. So not too long, after your group kind of goes around, talking to your mom and stuff. Well, now all of a sudden, some of the first finishers are coming in, and then you kind of have that first pack or whatever, and as the race has gone on, you can tell that some of the packs have kind of dissipated a little bit. And so then you've got the kind of sort of the second wave, and then the third wave, and then you've got a few stragglers, and they're coming in, and the guy on the megaphone going, "Okay, all second graders, please line up. We're getting ready to start." And now your mom's kind of freaking out because he's getting ready to line up, and you still haven't shown up. I mean, all the other kids, and it's been a pretty long gap, and she's looking at me and everything. And he goes, "Okay, second graders." And right about then, you just hear this lady go, "Wait, we've got one more." And that's where I wish I could have queued up like the Chariots of Fire, because you're coming in, and it's like at a swim meet when you've got that last kid and everybody's cheering him on, saying, "Come on, you can do it." Well, you just heard the cheering, and you had no concept that you were bringing up the rear. You just had the concept of, these people are cheering for me. And so as you're starting, you're doing like the little wave like this at people, and doing one of these, and the guy's going, "All right, second graders, here we go. As soon as she gets to the line," and you're just kind of milking it for all you can, and everybody's cheering and stuff, and he's, "Okay, we're almost ready." And as soon as you hit that finish line, I mean, I think somebody like quickly grabbed you over so that boom, they could get the second graders out, but you didn't care. I mean, you were in the limelight. You got your medal just like everybody else. You were getting pictures taken with your friends, but yeah, the turkey trot, that was the first and only time that I can recall that you ever ran that race. But it was quite the moment in your illustrious athletic history.
Oh yeah, illustrious.
Yeah.
What were some of the like funniest moments of parenting? Just like that, like what, with either myself or Jake?
Man, it's a good question. I think for me, probably the one that always stands out was, having a daughter first. You just become accustomed to, she, her, this, that, and the other. Well, then, we got pregnant again, and now we're going to have we had a son. And so obviously there are some differences in the genders anatomically. And so I'll never forget when Jake was born and your mom was just trying to teach you, that because obviously you were around when he was getting changed and stuff, and how girls had a vagina and boys had a penis. And so we had come home from the hospital, and Chick the Great was in town because it was, getting close to Thanksgiving. So she was already in town, and her and Grams were going to come over and see the new baby. So they came over, and they're all excited, and we're passing Jake around, and then all of a sudden it was getting all stinky. It was, time to change the diaper. So I just put Jake down, and I'm changing the diaper, and you walked over, and you looked down, and you see me changing Jake, and you looked right up at Grams and Chick the Great and said, "Girls have a vagina and boys have a penis." Classic, because it was just, and then you just walked right off. You didn't have anything else to say except for that. So, doing that kind of stuff was, that right there was probably one of the memories that stands out the most as far as raising kids. You guys always did fun little stuff here and there, but that was definitely one that resonates.
Like the Chick-fil-A, or what? I don't remember what restaurant it is, but the booth.
Oh, yeah. Well, so, for yourself, you always had this thing, and I don't really know what it was, but you just loved people dressed up in big, fuzzy costumes. It didn't matter if it was Clifford the Big Red Dog, Blue from Blue's Clues, certainly Elmo was your favorite, and we had taken you to go see this. It was like a thing at the mall, and it was supposed to be a safety thing, and it was really for kids and parents, I guess. And it was all about make sure that you're wearing your seatbelt, that you're in the, you have all this done right and that done right, and don't talk to strangers, and blah blah blah. And you were pretty excited because you got to see all of your friends on the big stage. Well, then they get done and they said, "Bye, everybody, bye." And you're standing up. You are, the whole time you've been standing, and you're waving, and your mom and I go, "Wow, she's taking this pretty well," because we would expect her to kind of freak out. Well, then they left, and then there was a long pause, and everybody's starting to stand up and leave, and then we said, "Okay, Melissa, it's time to go." And boy, that did not go over well. So you pretty much just lost it, and we said, "All right, we gotta get out of here." So, and we hadn't eaten lunch yet, so we decided, okay, well, we'll go ahead and just pack you up, and we'll take you, and we'll drive over to Chick-fil-A, because we're gonna just get out of the mall environment. We thought maybe a little break or a little separation would kind of help you. And so we go over, and by now you've kind of started to settle down a little bit, and so we go to Chick-fil-A and we get you, something to eat, and we sit you down on the seat, and your mom and I were sitting across from you, and you were sitting there eating your sandwich, and it was like Demi Gorgon had just grabbed your leg, because all of a sudden you were just sitting there and you just went, and you just slid right underneath the seat, and that was it. No lessons. It was one of the funniest things we've ever seen. You were fine, but yeah, it was good stuff. Good stuff.
I just love the image of baby there 1 second and then they're gone.
No baby again. Yeah.
What about with Jake? Any particular funny stories?
No, I would say not funny, but Jake, he's the athlete, the sportsman, and I remember coaching him, having coached him for, the first year I coached him in basketball was in first grade, and it was over at Newtown Park, and it was a ragtag little group of boys and stuff, and it was the first game, and your mom was really bummed out because she said, "Oh, I can't go because you had a Girl Scout thing," and she was the troop leader for the Girl Scouts, and I said, "Don't worry about it. It's the first game of the season. There's going to be plenty more games. I'm not going to really miss anything." Well, fast forward to the game, and it's a nail biter. We're in the fourth quarter, and it's back and forth, and the other team scores a basket with about 10 seconds left to go up by 1 point. And we inbound the ball, and Jake is the little point guard for that quarter, and he comes dribbling down, and he doesn't have really any sense of time and all that kind of stuff. He just knows just dribble down, and all the fans are getting more and more excited as he's dribbling the ball down, and everybody's starting to yell. They're like, 3, 2, and so he just gets to a point, and he just shoots the ball like he normally would. Well, the ball swishes through the net at the buzzer to win the game by 1 point in his first game ever. And I am going crazy. I'm jumping up and down. I'm like, and I'm high-fiving all the kids, and all the fans are going crazy and stuff. And of course, your poor mom, she wasn't there. I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, of all the games not to go to. So then I had to call her the next time, and I said, "Jake," I said, "now your mom's going to be really sad." And I said, "Just try to keep it cool and just, but why don't you tell her about the game?" So he calls her, and I can hear her, through the phone, and she goes, "Oh, how was the game?" And before he gave me say the word, I was like, "Oh my gosh, it was the greatest game ever, you should have been there." So to this day, she's still a little bit, miffed that she had to miss it, but years have passed. So.
What were some of the other best coach moments?
Best coach moments? I mean, gosh, I don't know. Every once in a while you have the games. I mean, it's pretty rare, but sometimes you have the games where it's like a last second shot or whatever. I definitely, your mom wasn't always excited with some of my coaching decisions as far as with Jake, if he was sick or hurt. And that's probably the one I would say. So he had, we'd been playing a pickup game. It was like a dads and sons thing. And he had a ball that went off of his thumb, and I thought maybe he just jammed it. He kept talking about how sore it was. And it really, kept kind of lingering, and it turned a different color, so we decided to get it checked out. Well, here he had this weird kind of break right at the tip of his thumb. And so the doctor says, "Okay, well, he needs to sit out until Christmas." And so it gets to the last game right before Christmas, so he would have had maybe like 4 more days or whatever. And we're playing this team, and we're just not playing very well. And Jake's over there on the bench and stuff. And he wasn't necessarily our best player, but he was definitely one of our better players. And I said at halftime, I said, "Jake," I said, "grab that ball and come out here with me." And I told my assistant, I said, "Well, here, just talk to the boys or whatever." So I go out there, and I'm throwing the ball to Jake, and I said, "Well, shoot, and why don't you do this? And how's your thumb feel?" "Pretty good." And so I come back over, and my assistant coach goes, "Are you thinking about putting Jake in?" And I go, "Yeah, I think his thumb's okay." And he looks across the gym, and he goes, "Don't look up." And I go, "What?" He goes, "Don't look up. Trisha's looking at you right now." And your mom was looking at me, and so I turned my back to the stand so she couldn't see me, and I was like, "Okay, and here's the second half, and we're going to do this, and Jake, you're going to play." And all the boys were all excited. They're all like patting him on the back, and yeah. So all of a sudden, the 5 boys go running out, and Jake's one of them. And I sit down, and I couldn't help it. I looked up into the stands, and there's your mom going. and she had the finger and looking at me. But what was funny was the reason it's kind of memorable was not only that, but he started playing out of his mind, and he was playing so well. There were moms on the other team cheering for him because he was, he was a pretty tiny kid back then, and he had about a month's worth of pent up energy because he hadn't been able to play, and so he's scoring and doing this, that, and the other. We ended up not winning the game, but he helped us come back, and it was a really close game at the end. But yeah, I mean, coaching it was definitely something that was like a special bond. That was a moment that was, like I said, kind of got me a little hot water with your mom, but it was all good.
Any more good coaching stories?
I mean, you kind of have memories and stuff, but nothing that really stands out where I'd say, oh, that was one that was just, you won't believe that this happened type of thing.
What about, okay, this is like completely different topic, but tell me about the spirit stick.
Oh, the spirit stick. All right, so this is going back to high school in freshman year. And it was our homecoming pep rally. So and our football team was not very good in high school. At least my freshman, most of my high school tenure. So what they did was they would have us go out to the bleachers, and they had all of us by grade. So you had the seniors over here, and then juniors and sophomores and freshmen. And so the seniors, they're in the nice, shady patch or whatever. And so what they said was, we've got the spirit stick, and so for the freshmen, this is something kind of new, right? And they said, all right, well, here's how it works: is we're going to go by and whoever's the loudest class gets to win the spirit stick. So it's homecoming, and everybody kind of knows this tradition. Seniors are going to win. So you get to the seniors, and seniors are going crazy. Then you get to the juniors, you know how juniors are. They're like, whatever. Sophomores, maybe a little louder. Well, then you get to the freshmen. Freshmen don't know any different, and we go absolutely crazy. Cheering, and so the teacher that had it was the coach or whoever that had the microphone, he's like, whoa, okay, this is kind of close here. He said, I think it's going to come down between the seniors and the freshmen. So he goes, all right, seniors. So now the seniors are going, they kind of probably about the same volume. Well, now they come to the freshmen. And we're all kind of buzzing, right? We're like, guys, we can win this. We can do this. And as a freshman, you're thinking, this is like our chance to make a mark. So we just out it crazy. So they said, all right, we've got a winner. Freshman class, you are the winners. First time ever that the freshman class had ever won the spirit stick for a homecoming. Now, the tradition was for the class president to get the spirit stick. So to give you some background, I was actually class president. And the only reason I was class president is because my good friend Michael Smith, I told him that I wanted him to try out for the soccer team or play soccer in the spring. And he was like, yeah, I'm on the fence. And he goes, well, what are you going to do? What about for me? And then so what's something? He goes, well, why don't you run for student government or whatever, for president? So I kind of did it as a joke. I ended up winning class president. So I go down, and I'm beaming. Because I'm going down, and I grab the spirit stick, and I turn over, and I'm doing like this to the freshman class. Well, everybody comes running out of the stands, and they come pick me up. And granted, I'm not even 90 pounds wet back then, so they pick me up, and I'm like bouncing on everybody's shoulders and stuff, and they carry me off as if we had, I don't know, won the World Cup or something, and it was just the spirit stick, but it was a pretty good little memory.
How'd the seniors feel about that?
Not too excited. One of them actually ran by, and he grabbed the spirit stick out of my hand, and they ran off like, oh, we got the spirit stick, but it's okay. They knew they had been put in their place at least for one time.
What about high school graduation? Fast
So
forward a couple years.
high school graduation. Fast forward to senior year and all excited. And we had our, back then for our high school, we had our rehearsal in the morning. So we had gotten done, and I invited some of my buddies to come over and just hang out at our house. So we're shooting hoops, just kind of goofing around. And one of the guys said, "Hey, this one of our classmates, Monica, he knew that her family was having a pool party, and he said, 'Hey, do you guys want to go?' And we said, 'Sure.' So we hopped in the car and we drive over, and there's probably about, oh no, like maybe 40 of us there, and get in, and I've been playing basketball, so I'm kind of hot and sweaty, and sit down by the edge of the pool, and I'm taking off my socks and shoes, and as I'm sitting there, I kind of felt something on my leg, and kind of swatted at it like this, and I felt something else, and I was doing this, and then I started feeling it on my other leg, and I was kind of doing one of these, and finally, I felt something on my leg, and I went, bam, like that, and slapped it, and I realized it was a bee. I didn't think anything of it, and just kind of, it was, it stung, but it wasn't, crazy, so throw my stuff, and I start swimming around, and I was only swimming for about maybe 15 minutes, and all of a sudden I just started feeling kind of itchy, and so I started walking over to to go inside to say, "Hey, do you have a bathroom or whatever?" And everybody I'm passing by is saying, "Do you feel okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I feel fine." Why? And they said, "Because you look, you know, you don't look right, or blah blah blah." And so I went into the bathroom, and I'm kind of looking in the mirror, and I guess I was kind of looking a little puffy, but I wasn't really thinking much. Well, I come back out, and now my voice is kind of starting to sound a little raspy, and they said, "Are you sure you feel okay?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm just itchy and all this kind of stuff." Well, the girl who was throwing the party, her older sister said, "Why don't I run you to the urgent care just to be just in case, just to be sure." So we walk in and to the urgent care place, and I walk up to the little check-in station, and they said, "Hey, how can I help you?" And that's all I remember the lady saying. Next thing I know, I'm on the ground. These guys are picking me up, and they're carting me to the back. And what was happening is that my throat was starting to close up from the bee stings. And the doctor later said he thinks I was probably stung between 10 and 12 times. And I had been stung in the past, but just never had an allergic reaction. This one was pretty bad. So my mom showed up, and they said, "Well, are you going to," she was asking them questions basically. By now they've got, drugs in me and stuff, so I'm fine. But they said, what's going to happen? Is he going to be able to go to his graduation? And the doctor said, "No, we need to kind of keep him." And so right then they've got me on a heart monitor, and you can see the thing going. And I said, "What about my party? Can I at least go to my graduation party?" Because we had family in town, I had friends coming over, and he said, "Nah, you can't go to your party either." And so that's when it was really going off the deep end. But so, at work or whenever, sometimes when people say, "Hey, what's something about yourself that people may not know?" That's what I always throw in there, is that I never actually walked during my high school graduation.
Alright, well, thanks for letting me interview you and for telling your stories.
No problem. Best of luck.